Good evening, everybody. How we doing? Sound check, Caleb. We still good on sound?
Yep, I can hear you.
Yeah.
You
Oh,
hear me?
good on yours too. Good. These things always work right about the time till the time you start, and then it's like, hey, are they really working? So it's always worth checking. Good evening, folks. I'm going to give everybody just a couple more minutes. I just like to give a little buffer. I know we're going to start at 7 is the official time, but Zoom sometimes lets folks in batches. So we will give you just a minute here. Just FYI, I have perfectly timed thunderstorms rolling through here at my place. I am looking at a massive rainbow right now. That's pretty cool. So I think it's going to be quick. I don't think I'll have any issues, but if I happen to drop off, Caleb will stop the recording and be like, "Hey, let me get with Jared and see how long that's going to be," and we'll go from there. But I think we'll be okay. So just as a heads up, if there's an unfortunate drop of the internet. All right. Well, everybody, do you know who we are? We should probably introduce ourselves. I know a lot of you already know who we are. You probably wouldn't be here if you didn't, but some of you don't. I'm Jared Russell, one of the coaches here at TRADEway, along with Caleb Pritchett. He's going to be helping us out in the background. Caleb and I kind of have a unique experience together because I started, first of all, I went through the TRADEway education back in 2011 and started coaching in 2018. So there was a 7-year stretch there where I was, of course, learning what the heck to do, practicing it, starting to implement it, working through that process, understanding what it is to be a real trader right before I started coaching in 2018. And from 2018, really early on there, I guess, Caleb came into the education. What year did you start?
So I started technically in 2013, but I started like with gusto in pretty much like January 1st, 2017 is what I consider it. But I did some like trading stuff before. I actually happened to catch David Mitchell, our founder's last step one that he ever taught way back 12 years ago.
Okay.
Which is amazing to say 12 years ago and like boom, and here we are.
I'm telling you.
But yeah, it was like 2017 is when I kind of came back.
So you got back into that. Makes sense because anyway, my point in all that was that I got to know Caleb really early on because he always had really good questions and was a fast learner and has some really good experience with what we're going to talk about tonight. So I'm grateful he's here to help. He will be in the background as you guys are asking in the chat and in the Q&A about anything we're talking about. I'm going to be basically hammering away at chart examples because I think that's the best way to describe scenarios in the trading world is to show them visually because we're in a very visual business. So most of what I'm going to present tonight is going to be on the actual stock charts. And I know most of you probably have some experience, looking through charts. If you don't, and you're just trying to learn to do that, this could be helpful for you too. So just bear with me. But before we get into that, we have to kind of lay some groundwork for what is, like, if I could be blunt, like what's the point? What is a we call this the PowerUP Bundle because one of these setups, and I'm going to back up and talk about that. One of these stock setups is called Power Trend, and the other one is called Bottoms Up. These are setups that I use every single day, every single week. I'm always looking for them. But what does it mean when I say a stock setup? It's very simple. Whether you've traded before or not, it's this simple. Price moves in patterns. Okay. Anything that has a price will move in patterns because human beings are the ones trading those instruments, whether it's a stock or a futures contract or a commodities contract or a Forex contract or any of that. Humans are trading them. So humans, even if they're not aware of it, tend to be repetitive, right? We have repetitive habits. We behave similarly in different scenarios. And so patterns repeat. So when I say these are setups, what that really means, if you just boil it down, was it's a moment in time where the stock pattern based on either the price or some other metrics put with it, which we're going to talk about in these two setups, presents a moment in time where there's a higher likelihood of one move in one direction or the other. Higher likelihood, no guarantee ever in this business, right? But a higher likelihood. And what we really need in trading is over the long run, we need to put ourselves in situations where we have that higher likelihood at that moment in time. And that little, what's seemingly a little edge or a little advantage in the long run really can play out powerfully over a lot of different trades, right? There is no great edge on a trade by trade basis. But when you take an advantage and you put yourself in that scenario over and over and over and over and over, that edge starts to play out. That's why a specific setup, we use that word and we will continue to probably, is so important. Now that I may be getting to like second base before first here. Let's talk about getting from home plate to first base. What is the point of, and this may be a little obvious, but what is the point of a specific setup? Well, if you've traded at all, if you haven't, I'll let you in on a little secret here. If you have traded, you probably understand this. It's really, really easy to come to trading, get a little bit of information, a little bit of education, and then you go out into the world of stocks, which I'm going to use the number 10,000 stocks. Sure, it's more than that, but I'm going to use the number 10,000. You go out into the world and it's like, okay, I learned a little bit about a price candlestick and a support line and a resistance line, and now I'm thrown into an ocean of 10,000 stocks. Well, okay. I mean, I'm excited. I want to learn something, but I have no idea what to do from here. And that's very common. So one of your first objectives as a trader should be, we struggle with this. This is what I'm really hoping what we're going to present tonight can help you with. One very big problem I see with newer traders, and I went through it, is that we just are not specific enough about what we will trade and what we won't trade. So that is to say, we haven't really defined the specific edge or advantage that we're willing to place our hard-earned money at risk, or we're just not, right? And there's a lot of different setups. I mean, these are not the only two setups in the world. There are just almost countless numbers of them. I'm going to explain to you a little bit about these, how they're different, what they do for me, and why I use them. But before that, I think it's important to just, I'm going to throw an analogy out there that'll, I think, be pretty obvious to drive home the importance of filtering or limiting your activity. I think new traders are afraid that or traders who are trying to find their footing are worried they're not going to find enough opportunities. And the longer you trade, I think the more you will start to realize your job is to trade fewer but better opportunities.
I was in that boat.
Yeah, right. It's
100%.
kind of
Yeah.
counterintuitive, no? I mean,
Oh yeah.
you feel like, well, wait a minute, you just told me I need to put my edge in play over and over and over. But first you have to find the edge. First, you have to look at something and say, this is the setup. This is where I want to take action. I mean, we all work hard for our dollars. It's just not good enough to just throw it out there into a stock and hope it goes the direction you want it to go. You can do that and you'll be right. You'll be right plenty of the time. But will you, on the long run, will that give you an edge, right? I think this is what a lot of traders do. I'm going to use a different, a real estate analogy to make this kind of silly. It's so obvious, but what we have, let's use that 10,000 stock number, right? We have a problem. There's an issue there for a trader, which is I can't trade them all. So the next question I have to ask is which one or two or whatever stage you're in, how many you want to trade, which ones do I focus on? And then the next question would be, okay, now that I have something that I want to focus on, how do I determine what that is and find detail for it? What a lot of traders do is they come at the market like let me use a real estate analogy, like you are shopping for a home. All right. And you go to a realtor, let's say, call up a realtor and say, hey, I'm looking to buy a house. And the realtor says, okay, well, you know, what they're going to ask you some questions, right? How big is the house? You know, how many bedrooms you want? Where? How about that? Where do you want to be located? And if your answer is somewhere on the planet Earth, they're going to go, good start, but that's kind of silly. Everybody knows they're not going to be that broad. Yes, that is true. You will be on Earth in the house you buy. You will be trading in the market if you just go find a stock and buy it. But clearly, you are going to, how many homes in the entire world are you going to be able to cut out of your analysis completely and not waste your time on if you're like, I need a home in Oklahoma City? That right there eliminates 99.99% of homes in the world, right? I need a home I'm from San Antonio, Texas. Pretty much born and raised. I need a home in Denver, Colorado, whatever your area is, right? Obviously, you can make one distinction and eliminate tons of unnecessary work. What we're talking about tonight and what I'll show you in a nutshell is that. And it's even more specific. We know if I told you, let's just use Denver, Colorado. I don't know. Okay, great. You want to be in Denver. Well, you still got a lot of filtering you need to do. In Denver, what suburb you want to be downtown? What suburb do you want? Where are you working? Do you want to be close to there? We're starting to take that circle and narrow it and narrow it and narrow it. That's literally exactly what we do when we define a setup, right? Basically, we're telling the market, I am defining the terms, not you, market. I define the terms because I get to decide when my money's at risk. The way I'm going to define those terms is based on specific criteria setting up to put me in the environment in that moment in time where I have an expectation of profitability. Not a guarantee, but a higher expectation of seeing a profitable scenario. Is that making sense? And you guys feel free to chat, send us questions or chat. I know Caleb's working in the background there. But that is what this is about. And some of you may be going, totally get that. Yeah, get to the charts. But some of you may not quite understand. I think a lot of you probably don't quite understand the necessity to be specific and to be intentional about a few really good setups. We're going to show you examples of 2 of those tonight. But the idea of taking your home buying process and saying, I need to get that all the way down to what neighborhood? Okay, now I've got a neighborhood. How many houses are going to be for sale in that neighborhood? Maybe you're down to a handful. Now we're talking, right? From planet Earth to a neighborhood in a city. We need to be that specific when we're looking for setups. And again, whether you're trading multiple different types of setups, each one has to have that level of specificity, right? And then as you work through that, you will be able to judge your own results based on how you're interacting with those setups. Are they working for you or are they not? You can work through it in real time. That's what trading's about, is finding an edge, implementing, putting your money to work when you do have the edge, being willing not to risk money when you don't have that edge. So trading, seems like a really super exciting, high-flying thing until you've done it for a while. And if it is still that to you, you're probably not doing very well, to be honest. Once you realize this is methodical, systematic, disciplined, non-emotional as little as possible. We can't get rid of all emotion, and some emotion is good, but the more you recognize that, the better off you're going to be. Okay, so when I think of, okay, how do I want to filter? Because the question you will ask yourself if you say, great, Jared, I can agree with that. That makes sense. I need to know what city, what zip code, what neighborhood. The next question you have to ask and then answer is, what criteria? I mean, I know I need to limit this and find something that makes sense, but what is that? What I'll do tonight is just show you what works for me and what I think makes a lot of sense for somebody trying to learn or get a really specific scenario and setup. I'll show you what works for me. These are setups I've been using for years, and there's a reason. They're simple and they're clean and they resonate with me and my style. So I'm going to work through that. As a matter of fact, let me just pull up the charts here. We will switch screens. Let's try this. Caleb, you can tell me when this switches over. All right, are you seeing my chart?
Yes.
Okay, cool. All right, so I am going to just scoot this over so I can give you a super fast rundown. It is important to know when I show you these setups that they're just not out on an island somewhere. They were generated from me wanting to find a certain type of, when I use the word price action, that just means pattern or trend, etc. And we're going to talk about trend quickly here. And then the rest of our time is going to be me showing you. We're going to start with bottoms up. I'm going to show you a bunch of examples that have played out and work through how this criteria will draw you to those examples very easily, very quickly, with a lot of clarity, okay? But before we do that, it's important to know why these are ones that I've landed on. And these are ones that, again, years and years later, I still look for these every single day. If I host a webinar for TRADEway for our clients on a Monday night or a Wednesday or any other day, I am scanning through these setups, these 2 that you're going to see, over and over and over, because they're easy to find. I know I can commit to them. And if I'm going to bring a trade idea to a group of people, I want to be able to have confidence in it, obviously. And so these are where I start. And it's really, really simple. I want the chart to be doing this. Caleb's probably seen me do this a time or two. Like I want the price to be moving from bottom left. Yeah, well, I guess I would have to bottom left to top right. That's called an uptrend, right? I want the price to be moving up, pulling back, making a higher high, higher price low, higher high. If they all look like this, we'd all be living in Fiji or something. If they look that good every time, it'd be easy to trade. But that's the idea. I want to trade trends, okay? Both the bottoms up and the power trend, shockingly, are going to be looking for specific types of trending characteristics, okay? So when we come into those setups will be kind of one of the main differences between the two. But the bottom line of both of these is I want to find stocks that are turning from something other than an uptrend into an uptrend, or ones that have already proven to me they're in an uptrend, and then I can go find them. So to back up, for bottoms up, it is in the name. I'm looking for stocks that have met my specific criteria, which we give you in the course, that show me that a stock has gone from moving this direction or maybe this direction to this direction. Generally speaking, right? Big picture. I'm not interested in this unless I'm bearish. Option traders, we'll talk about that too. But generally speaking, we're gonna stick with the bullish or upward movement at this time for now. But I want stocks that are moving this direction. It's just that simple. To me, it doesn't make a lot of sense to have a lot of focus on a different type of trade because big institutional traders are the ones that create these patterns. Why would I not just want to go with what they're doing and just trade where they're sending the stock? And if they want the stock to make a new priced high every time it rallies up, then that makes a lot of sense to me. So I think it's just kind of a common sense thing to say, I want to trade with a trend. So for bottoms up specifically, this is basically my minimum criteria to trade an uptrending stock. So it's how I define the first criteria for me to consider trading this stock. In other words, what describes an uptrend? This is how I'm going to define it. The first way I'm going to define it. So I call it bottoms up because stocks will come down like this and they will base or bottom. A lot of times they'll do something like this, right? You see how it was moving down and now it's moving sideways? I want to know when this move is confirming. And some people will be like, well, right there, dude. It just, obviously, it started moving up and it kept going, right? But we didn't know that at the time, right? So I want to have criteria that tell me, okay, it meets my minimum standard for an uptrend, a bullish trend, and that's where I want to go look for the specific bottoms up strategy. Okay, so a stock that was in a downtrend and now is defined by my criteria back in an uptrend. So I'm free to trade that now, right? Based on my own rules, I'm free to trade it. Okay, that's what we're going to look at. We're going to look at those examples first. That's bottoms up. The other part of the bundle is called power trend, and it's appropriately named because power trend is going to be more of an example of I've already got this in play. The stock is already doing this, okay? And I'm just trying to define when do I want to participate? When do I want to get in there and be a buyer? It is, can't say it is for sure, but it is possibly the easiest entry to find that I've ever seen. I don't know, Caleb. You tell me.
Yeah. I was just gonna say, I remember when I learned this. So I was my dad was my trading partner for a while, and so I remember learning this from you back in, man, was that like 2019, 2018?
Yeah, sounds about right.
2018, something like that. And I specifically remember being like, Dad, this is like red light, green light for stock trading. It's just as simple as it's not as simple as just go stop, but it kind of is. There's an element to that I found really refreshing because I was in a place with my trading when I came into power trend for the first time that was just very like I didn't have a lot of confidence yet and I didn't really know what I was looking for. And so to have something that did say, look for this and wait for this, it made me patient because I was confident that I could see the number of entries in the past. I'm like, oh, well, so I shouldn't have to wait that long. Like I can be patient for a day or two. And it's just, yeah, I love power trend for sure. It's so helpful.
And you're going to see in the examples I have in a little bit, you're going to see just that. Where how many of you have been trading? Raise your hand if you've been trading for 6 months. click your little hand button if you've been trading for about 6 months. I say that because if you've been around trading for about 6 months, maybe you're going to know, you're going to relate with what I'm about to say. How many times have you looked at a chart, you saw a day where you thought maybe a good entry for it, either you got distracted, you didn't take it, or you decided not to take it for whatever reason, and a couple of days later, the stock makes a big move without you. I mean, we've all experienced it, right? That's, by the way, impossible to avoid that. That's going to happen to all of us, right? What you're going to see later, just with these examples I have for Power Trend, is how often re-entries are available to you through a trend once it remains strong. And there are, you would have to intentionally be ignoring the criteria to do it wrong. That doesn't mean you're always going to win trades. I'm going to show you stop losses. I'm going to show you trades that stopped out. I'm going to show you trades that would have worked. You're going to see both. The point is, I'll let you decide from the examples, but the point is the specificity is you're going to know exactly what you're supposed to do. Like bottoms up has a little subjectivity to it, and you'll know that when you see the course based on how it works. Power Trend is very specific. Now, back to bottoms up. When we go through that bottoming process and we start to trend again, there is no subjectivity in what it requires for you to have a quote green light. In other words, let me speak in the first person. For me to say this meets my criteria, I'm allowed to trade it. That is going to be very clear to you. Power Trend is just going to occur probably more often. And that's one reason we bundled these, because they actually complement each other really well. I have an example if we have time later. I'll show you a stock that triggered a bottoms up setup, and through the course of its move to its eventual target had 3 or 4 Power Trend entries if you wanted to trade it multiple times. And so they really pair well together, which is why we thought we'd bundle them. So really quickly, I can tell you right now I'm going over an hour. So I know we started a little late, but it's important to let you know what we're about to look at. Otherwise, you're just looking at charts, right? So I want to give you an idea of, we'll start with bottoms up. I'm going to go back to the charts. I have them all marked so we can go pretty quickly. I'm just going to show you, here's where your entry was, here's where the target was. You will know exactly on bottoms up where your target level is, precisely. Now, you have the freedom to manage your trade however you want, but you will have parameters once you see the trade setup, okay? So we're going to show you those, and then Caleb will be answering questions as we go. Anything that needs to come to me, he knows he can butt in anytime, interrupt and say, hey, check this out, we have a good question or whatever. So don't hesitate to ask questions.
Hey, check this out
That's why you're
right
here.
now, actually.
What's
So I've got one right now.
Okay.
So Jeff just asked, does this work in downtrends too? And I would say both. Do both courses work in downtrend?
Yes, and both courses will teach you both directions. Now, the beauty about price action and setups is that price action works like a mirror, right? Now, not precisely, but generally speaking, trends go up and trends go down. So if I have specific metrics that tell me a stock by my criteria is trending up, that exact same criteria flipped upside down would tell me it's trending down. It's beautiful. So yes, both setups, you will find bullish and bearish. There have been a lot. Oh, by the way, what I call the bearish bottoms up setup, I call it top down. Go figure. Really, it was really, really creative. I call it top down. Same setup in reverse. So you're going to learn that too. We're going to talk about all that in the course. So let's start here, if we're ready, with, matter of fact, I am going to, so everybody can see the whole screen. I'm going to cut my camera. I'm sure we'll come back on in a little while. Good seeing everybody. That way you guys can see everything. Let us know if that's a problem. Whoops. Oh, I just hit a button I didn't want to hit. There we go. Okay, you guys are still seeing my screen, right? Yes,
Yep,
Caleb? Still? Okay, cool. All right, I'm going to go out here to go to a 3-year daily. And then I'm just going to go through, I'm going to start working through. You're going to notice some of those things I just told you about bottoms up and how it sets up when I show you these. So I've got them highlighted on here so we can move quickly. I thought there was a good value in moving quickly through a lot of examples instead of slowly through a few. So I have them lined out here. All right. Now, let me back up just a little bit on here. And I'm going to show you what you'll notice on all of these. Does anybody already on this chart see something? And I won't take this long on everyone because I have a bunch of them and I think the repetition matters. Does anybody notice something like what I just said a minute ago? Is that an uptrend? No, that's top left to bottom right. That's not what I want. Now what do we start doing? See how this starts to move sideways? Now we start to move up. Now this green circle is the entry day for this bottoms up trade. Okay. This is what you'll see on these. I think some of these have a red circle for the target and some are green, but the two circles are your entry and your target. For the record, you will know this target is not, I'm going to say this on the first chart and I'll probably say it more. That is not there because that was the high. Okay. You knew that that target price was there before you took this trade. All right. So some of the, now what you're going to find is you're probably going to see, you're going to see there's a reason why I use this as a target, because sometimes stocks will stop there and turn around. But so I'm not putting these on here because they are at the high. I'm putting them on there because that was the predetermined target level, if that makes sense, right? So in that way, that's not a cherry picked, like, oh, look, you would have sold it right here. No, you would have sold it right there. Or you would have considered selling it, or you would have moved up a stop loss and managed your trade, or whatever you decide to do, okay? But all of these bottoms up examples, if you look back to the left, you will see some sort of downtrend or sideways type move, and they will begin to trend back up. Because remember what I said, that's my neighborhood. That's the neighborhood I want to play in. I want to search in. Okay. One other thing you will always notice, always without fail, is I will never be buying it right here. I'll never be buying the low because I can't know right here, other than hindsight, I cannot possibly know that that was going to be the low until it is. So that doesn't help me, right? None of these charts will be down here. You will not see me showing you an entry right here. You might even look at these and go, gosh, man, that's kind of late. You had to wait that long? The criteria told me I had to wait that long. Remember what we said about criteria and how important it is. So let's just look through some of these. This is BlackRock. Anybody heard of BlackRock? Probably. You're probably like, I wish I didn't, but a lot of you know what BlackRock is. Huge asset manager. This was a very clean one. What I think you'll find on a lot of these is once they trigger, there's something in, I mean, setups work because traders understand what they are, right? Sometimes they're self-fulfilling situations, but a lot of times you'll find once these entries trigger, there's a threshold that's been breached and the price action's free to move to the next target. It happens a lot, not all the time. Again, no setup works all the time, but that is, you will not have to guess what's happening there once you have the criteria. It's very, very straightforward. All right, now let's take a look at, and again, I got a bunch of these, and Caleb's gonna watch in the background. I'm gonna go fairly quickly and show you these, but if you guys are like, dude, we get the point, let's look at power trend, let's move on, you just let us know, I'm fine with that. But I would rather have more than less, because I'm a real nerd for this stuff. So I get super excited about it, and my wife has to remind me that not everybody is the same. So I'm cool with that. All right, some of these I got to wiggle the chart a little bit to make them fit. All right. Now some of these you got to look at scale. Doesn't look like much. This is Meta. Most of you have heard of Meta, right? Here is a bottoms up on Meta. Again, this was back in 2022. You can see the downward to sideways action. And this is closer to a bottom than I can even remember most of these. As soon as I say it's not going to be at a bottom, it's pretty close. But the criteria was in play right here. And it was very obvious. Either one of these 2 days, shoot, you could include this third day over here. That'd be fine too. Somewhere in here. And you knew ahead of time that this was your target. All right? Now, I'm not highlighting where you would have to sell. I'm highlighting where your predetermined profit objective is. Let's call it an objective. Very obvious. You would know it, right? And so you see that, you see how the sideways action, once that entry is triggered, the trend is kind of free to move. You see how that trajectory picks up? The momentum is there and boom, you're up there in a matter of a few weeks, you move to your target. Now look, your entry is down here at 120 and that target's at 150. Like that's not a small move. That's a very, very good move there. So that's Meta. Next on the list is CII, I think, or is it CLL? Maybe it's CLL. I remember it was a pretty one. No? Did I get that ticker wrong? Maybe I did. Go to the next one. Oh, I put CII. It's LII. There it is. Now I found it. Don't worry, they're not all 3 years old. They didn't all happen back here in 2022. I've got a bunch of different ones all over the place. Here is LII. All right. There's your first entry. There's not only one time you can buy these. Let me just point one thing out here. If you know that this triggers your permission, I'm going to use that word. I now have permission to trade this to the upside because it's been defined as an uptrend by my criteria, right? That doesn't mean that's the only time you can buy it. Now, this is an earnings report, so let's be real. We would be out for that. This is one of the few that has an earnings report in between the entry and the target. But in this case, you could have traded this up here and taken it off and waited, and you could have bought it again right here if you had enough room to your target, because you know what this target objective is. Okay, you know what that objective is ahead of time. And if the stocks move too much, then you wouldn't buy it if you didn't have enough profitability. But you know where that is, so it's very, very simple and straightforward to plan how to manage that trade. All right, into it. Back here, there's a clean one. Notice the prior price action. Sideways, no trend. By definition, if a stock's moving sort of sideways, there's no trend. Okay, but this, based on the criteria, tells me we have a much higher likelihood of this becoming an uptrend, or it is proving it's becoming an uptrend. And as you see, your target was up here. Notice how that target is above where the price went. This one didn't quite make it. Target price area was up here around 500. Now, the entry was at 400. It moved to 488. Now, they're not all going to work that way, but that's over 20% move in the stock. Do you think it's possible, if you recognized, just as an anecdotal thing, if you recognized that you had an edge here, do you think you might be able to also buy it here? If you had enough space to this eventual target, you think you could have bought it again right in here? See how that stock's moving now? But it's really helpful to have this bigger picture telling you have a higher likelihood that you have a trend at your back, right? The win at your back. So that one is into it. APP, this one is an insane stock. This is going to be so goofy. Look how small it is back here. You see these highlights back here? This thing was trading at $15 back here. Up at this high, it was at 520. It's moved so much that I can barely get the candles on right here. And then I have to do this just to see it. It's crazy. It's just been a huge run up in this stock. All right, there we go. Now this one's interesting. So I made a point to not put trades on here where I had an earnings report in between my entry and my eventual target, okay? This one's interesting though, because it did trigger a bottoms up right here. You had an earnings report coming in a few weeks. You could have chosen to take that one. If you did, it made a good move prior to earnings. You could have had a profitable trade there. If you passed on it because the earnings report was coming, that's fine. At TRADEway, we teach and recommend that we don't hold through earnings reports for our active trading because it's a real, there's a lot of uncertainty. Now this one gapped way up and of course you'd have been thrilled, but they can just as easily move down on you. So we don't recommend doing that. So the honest answer here is there was a trade here, but it would have been a quicker one, all right? But you didn't have to wait too long. After this earnings report, the stock comes down here, creates a pretty consistent pattern in the price action. That's called a falling wedge. But that wasn't the criteria. There's other criteria that showed me there's the day this comes on the radar for a bottoms up, and there was the target that I knew ahead of time. Knew it was already there. It'll be on the chart. Now, again, to get some scale, let's see what we got here. If we were a buyer at 1350, this target was up here at close to 18. So significant move. Now, also be clear that your stop loss on this trade would be like right here. So I'm risking this much to make this much. That's the kind of stuff we want to find. All right. So that's
Jared,
Yep.
got a bunch of questions on the target. So you're saying with bottoms up, the target would be displayed on the chart. Right now, it's not being displayed on the chart, but it would be.
Correct. You're not going to guess at any of this. I'm showing you examples. The coursework is I'm going to walk through. We're going to teach these live, right? I'm not going to, if you've got education with us already, you have an online learning area where you can go in, you can click on a course, you can watch the recordings and review as much as you want. This we're going to teach live. I'll get to that when we're done, but I'm going to teach these live. And what I'm going to do is layer on each piece of the criteria. If you decide this is something you're interested in, layer on the criteria and you'll just see it go. It'll come on, it'll pop out. So none of these have anything on the screen but price. And then as we go through the course, if you decide you want to participate, I'm going to layer on the criteria and show you exactly how to do it. And it's not complicated at all. All right. It's just, you don't see it until you see it. You know, you don't know it until you see it. And then once you do, you're like, ah, okay, I get it. I know where to cap my risk. I know where to expect for a profit. And that's part of the bottoms up course, is saying, hey, we need our profit target to be high enough to make this trade worth it. So correct, you're not going to see this right now and know exactly why that was the target, but you will. So that's APP. Let's see here. Duolingo. This has been a hot one. I had a good one on this back here. This is where I just started using two green circles, I guess, instead of a red one. There's your entry. Notice drifting lower, finds a bottom, starts to move up. There's where we first start seeing our criteria. And now check this out. This was my target direction, my objective. So this is a good example of, like, you will see a lot of stocks will stop here and pull back, or stop here and reverse. But depending on how you like to manage trades, if you were using kind of a trailing stop loss type management, which we'll get to that in Power Trend, can be very helpful. You could have said, you know, you could have been a buyer down here at 74, your first, you know, your major target's up here at 86, and this thing explodes. This thing explodes to 105. There's nothing that says you have to sell your whole position here, but you will know that your objective for that trade has been met, and you want to watch this carefully. And this one just never pulled back. It just kept going. So depending on how you manage your trades, that could be something that you took advantage of more. But the candles between these two highlighted circles are where the trade setup was. So again, I'm not, you know, cherry picking, telling you, oh, this one you would have held all the way up to the, you know, you would have held this one all the way to the high. No, this is where your objective was. Could have sold there, or you could have trailed it and managed that way. Here's one most of you have heard of, Microsoft. Some of these, like I told you, I have a whole list I'll go through quickly of very, very recent ones. But here's one on Microsoft. Maybe a little more choppy in the trade itself. But we have this kind of sideways action, and it really doesn't, without the criteria, I'm looking at this like, oh, I wonder why that would be where I would look to enter. Well, you'll know very, very quickly. And your stop on this, so you know, for those of you, if you're brand new, you don't know when I say stop, that's the level we're going to stop losing money at, right? If I get in this trade expecting it to move up, when I say a stop or a stop loss, that's exactly what it is. That red line would identify an order or an action that I'm going to take. If the stock goes down this far, I'm out with that loss and I don't lose anymore. It's a big part of trading is knowing where those levels are going to be and then executing the exit orders, right? So in this case, my stop would be at that red line. So although the stock didn't really go crazy early on, it never hit my stop. And this was my target objective. And it met that objective inside that green circle. I'm putting that on the target. So that one worked nicely. And look, it reversed there. Now I'm always hopeful that they don't do that, that they, you know, can punch through and keep going like that APP example. But I'll tell you, you will notice this happens so often, you'll know why that's the target objective. Because a lot of times you get that trend either reversing or slowing down there. TXN, Texas Instruments. That. All right. I always kind of zoom in a little too far. I need to get a little more to the left side. This is a beautiful example. This is what I would say is more what I was describing before we started looking at the charts of two things. Notice the downtrend, right? You come in here, you find a bottom, then you start to move up, right? I don't get a bottoms up green light, if you will, till right here. So we are way off the low. We've even made a major higher low and a higher high, and I don't get my criteria till here. I don't really care how long it takes. It's my criteria. So like I mentioned, for me to be able to commit to my own advantage or edge, I'm just waiting for my trade. I'm not looking to try to get this much of a move because I almost never will. Unless I'm guessing, I can't buy it down here unless I'm guessing. So I'm perfectly fine catching, you know, the middle third, you know, are part of that move, because in this case, let's see what we're talking about here. We're talking 155, and this exceeded the target, but this target was 166. You're not going to retire on that trade, but that's a solid little trade. You know, when you look at this and you have a stop, you're going to control your risk right about here, right? So you're buying here and your risk to here, and your target's up here. That's a pretty solid little trade. Not everything's a grand slam, right? Not everything's a home run. The point is repetitive action inside your advantage. That's the deal. Taking action when you have the advantage. So that's nothing super sexy on that, but a good solid trade setup. All right, I got about 4 more, and then we'll look at some very recent ones, and then we'll get over to power trend, unless we need to move on earlier. And just everybody who is here, they had this webinar scheduled till 8:30. I don't have to go that far. If you guys are going blue in the face, just tell me and we'll go. But again, I'm kind of a weirdo for this stuff. And Caleb will keep an eye on that chatter for me so I know. Here's another. Here is SE. This one's been really hot lately, actually, currently. It's a very good example. Look at that. See that blue line? Boom, base, 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 base. My entry into this bottoms up right here is not at the lows. It's already come up. It's proven to me that my minimum trend barometer has been met. And now I'm moving up in my objective. This one actually continued to move, but you likely would have been out here. This earnings report was right here after the close. So you could have held it as late as right here if you wanted, but our predetermined understanding of our objective was right here around 48, and your entry was 40. It's a 20% rally in the stock. So remember, I'm just speaking right now to the actual price patterns and the setups. How you take advantage of that is totally your call. If you want to buy call options, you want to buy leaps options, you want to use vertical spreads, credit spreads, debit spread, whatever you know to use, you can take advantage of these. We're just looking at this as an edge in the direction of the price, right? I believe when I enter one of these trades, I have a higher likelihood of getting the upside follow through than just throwing a dart at a board and buying a stock. That's an edge. That's what I'm looking for. So think of it as the setup itself is the roadmap. You get to choose whether you're going to be driving a bulldozer or a Ferrari. That's totally up to you. This is the roadmap, right? I need to know where I'm going. This is telling me more likely where I'm going. Here's Southwest Airlines. This was a really clean one, if I remember right. Good example of your downtrend. We find the low that we didn't know was the low. We make a higher low, and I get my bottoms up entry right here. And just notice, this is a little bit nuanced, but I mentioned it before. Notice the difference in the trajectory here. And then once it gets into that scenario where it's met that criteria, they tend to do this quite often, where they pick up that momentum and move right up to the objective. This one actually got rejected right at the target. And that's why it's good to know why that target's there. KHC. These are really exciting ones, you know. Kraft Heinz. Everybody's really excited about trading Kraft Heinz, right? I couldn't care less what the name of the ticker is. If it sets up in one of these,
like any trade on KHC, you get a bottle of ketchup, right?
You know, I should have some ketchup then, because I've traded this a few times. You know, they may be sending it to your house. I don't know.
Okay.
Well, ooh, I'm at the wrong direction. There we go. Ugly, ugly, ugly. Nothing, nothing, nothing. I want it going which direction? Bottom left to top right. This is when it tells me that's more likely to continue. Here's what I kind of think about this. Gosh, I could talk for a long time about this, and I need to pick up the pace. I will let some other trader knock themselves around trading in this right here. I have no problem with that. There's plenty of people who will want to do it, and I hope they make money. I'm fine with that. I just don't want to deal with it. I want the easier path. And the reason this criteria has stuck out to me and why I've used it for so long is because it's proven over and over to be the point at which the path becomes easier and less stressful. Now, you'll notice here, our target was here, and that thing just kept on going. You know, build into your plan how to trail a stock. And we'll talk about that when we teach the course. You can absolutely do that. But we want to know where that is, because if we're going to plan all the details of our trade, well, we have to know, okay, I'm buying here and my stop loss is down there, right? How do I decide if this is a good setup? I need to have an idea of where it could go. Does that look like it makes sense? The red box is your loss. The green box is your potential gain. You don't have to be a genius to know that's going to work out for you if you can nail those scenarios down. All right, last one, and then I'll do a couple of quickies on that have happened very recently, because I do want to have, I think sometimes, by the way, just to be fully transparent, this list comes across as cherry picking, but there's no other way to show you a setup except to show you one that worked, right? Like I can show you ones that you're going to stop out. Some trades are going to come in here and you're going to see your criteria set up and it'll pop up a little bit and then it'll come down here and it'll stop you out. What I want you to focus on in these setups is how much risk you're taking to your stop. And this one, stop was a little bit further out. It's about like that. There's your stop. Here's your target. Now, it took a while to get there, but it eventually got there, and that's where it pulled back. Think in terms of risking a certain amount of money to make multiples of that amount of money. Not necessarily did the stock move 80%. I don't really care about that part. I mean, that'd be great. But I want to know I'm risking an amount of money that can pay me multiples of that. So for every dollar I'm risking, I want to be able to make 2, 3, 4, 5 plus. That's the more accurate way to think as a trader. All right, here are a few that have just really occurred recently. I'm going to do these fast. We'll take just a quick pause for questions on that, and then we'll go to Power Trend, which I think you'll like. Here's this one. As you can see, these are all going to be, let's do 3-month daily. These are all very recent. Then I don't have to zoom and we can go faster. There we go. Okay. Sigma Group. There's your bottoms up entry. That was your target. We ended up going a little higher and we pulled back. This is literally target was hit 3 days ago on CI. GPC. There. Now this is just post earnings. So here's your earnings report, right? After that, you trigger into a bottoms up. It hit the target 2 days ago. And so, yeah, there was a little messy and a little bit busy and back and forth, but it did make it to target. Or objective. I like that word a little bit better, actually. CCI. And the reason I'm doing this, guys, is because I didn't want you to think I just cherry picked these from 2022 and none of them ever happened. These are setting up. As a matter of fact, do you think, I hadn't mentioned this yet, do you think the fact that we've got a 10% market correction in the S&P could be very beneficial to a bottoms up grouping of bottoms up setups? Because
I can just say yes.
Yeah, right. Like this is why I get when the market's pulling back, I'm like, ooh, I know my list of bottoms up is going to expand. Why? Because I need some stocks that have been drifting lower or going sideways in order for the setup to work. So it's like, okay, cool. I'm never crying about a correction. You know, there's always a setup if you know what to look for. So here's our entry. We didn't quite get to the objective. We were coming into the earnings report. So I think if you were trading up here a day before earnings, you probably would know you need to get, take your profit, but of course, maybe not. I don't know. Seems like that would make sense. CL, really exciting one. Colgate Palmolive. Okay, whatever. Boring stock went from 91 to 97. That was the setup. Pretty solid little trade for a stock like this. No big deal. You want to use leverage? You can use leverage to make that a bigger profit on that move. But the setup was the setup was the setup. That's where I'm really focused on. Remember, we're filtering to buy a house in the right neighborhood. QSR. There it is. So way off the lows. There was our entry. This was our objective. And got a little higher, and now we pulled back. Notice too, by the way, all the ones I'm showing you right now have outperformed the market in general by a lot. If these were setting up right now, they have outperformed the general market. Well, look at our list. We've got Sigma Health. We got Colgate. We got a restaurant company. We've got Mondelez. Like these are defensive type stocks, right? It kind of makes sense that they'd be doing well. Here's one as a good example of what I described as taking advantage of the middle third of a move. It's like, I want the stock to prove it to me on the first third. And if I can't get all this, the third, if you will, the last third, that's okay. I want the meat of the move. And a lot of times that'll happen here. So here was our entry. That was our predetermined, understood objective. It did make it, and it ended up going higher, but no big deal. Sometimes we'll take advantage of that. Sometimes we won't. GIS. There's another one. General Mills. There it is. Entry, let's say somewhere around 62. It rallied up to 66, 67 in a couple days. It's a good move for that stock. Let's see, I've got two more. Newmont Mining. There's one back here. There's your entry. You do pull back a little bit. You'll know where your stop is. Generally, this will be, you'll be able to play with this a little bit. We'll talk about that in the course, but your stop's going to be down here, wobbled around a little bit. There's your objective. It really doubled the initial price objective there. It went up about another 1x from there, but that was, you know, we'll trade from 41 to 45.50 or so. Pretty solid. And then last is in. Notice this one, very recent. There's your, somewhere in these couple of days, could have been a buyer. And let's just call it 41. And it rallied to 44 over the course of a few weeks. So, you know, 10% move. Not bad at all. So I felt like that was fast, but it's 5 till 8. So it wasn't as fast as I expected it to be. What can I do before we move on to power trend? I feel like repetition on seeing this is way better teacher than me talking about it. So that's why I wanted to do it that way.
Most of the questions that I'm getting a lot of questions that are kind of similar. So do we have any kind of hand holding, like community page for power trend and community page for bottoms up? Is there something like that? That's kind of the touch points.
You're not going to need it. I mean, I don't know any other way to say it other than when you see this, you're going to go, I know exactly how to do this. And by the way, in our courses, when I teach them, Caleb actually is, as far as we have planned right now, will be helping me on those as well. We're going to show you how to actually build some criteria inside our charts by TRADEway to help bring your attention to them. But once you see this, you're going to realize you don't need a whole bunch of support. It's just, it's there. You're going to know whether you want to, the criteria is there. It'll be a matter of, do you want to buy it or not? Do you prefer that chart? Is the market condition in the place you want it to be? But you're not going to need a bunch of extra support. I mean, I know that sounds kind of crazy, but trust me, you won't. So yeah, you'll have the setup, you'll have the recording that we're going to do. You'll have that added to your online area. You can review. You can get with us in coaching, obviously, and ask questions, and get it kind of drilled in from there. But you're really not going to need it. They're both very straightforward. Now we're going to use, well, we'll talk about the bundle here in a little bit, but you'll have some opportunities to do some extra learning. What else?
So will the new teaching that you and hopefully I will be a part of, will that update the people who have the courses already from the first time we did this? Okay.
Yep. This is going to be the one you get. So after we get them done, when those are added, everything else will be pulled. So you're going to have the latest one, which, by the way, for anybody on here who has one or both of these, and you're just kind of hanging out with us, appreciate you coming, by the way. There are some things that have changed since I taught these last. I think some small, not much, but some small nuance that I've added to some of these that might be helpful to you as well. So you will get that updated recording if you've already got these two courses. Yeah.
Okay. So just to reiterate, this could work for stock. This could work for options. It's really kind of trader's choice how to best take advantage of bottoms up and top down, right?
Correct. It's literally just, again, think about the setup as the roadmap. You're going to decide what vehicle to get in to take that path, but this is telling you, here's where the road's going. This is the road you're going to follow. Here's your path. You decide whether, if you just want to buy stock and you're going to drive the sedan or the minivan or whatever, that's all good. Love doing that. If you want to get in the sports car, you want to buy a call option, that's totally up to you. This is just telling you the price action has become bullish. It's time for you to try to take advantage of that if you want to. How you do that will be totally up to you. And that's good because that will vary based on where you are in your education, right? You'll be able to say, oh, well, I don't really understand some of that other stuff, but I do understand buying stock. Great. If you can leverage your money over and over and over, buying and selling stocks in the right patterns, you can do just fine. You can do just fine.
I like the way John said it in chat. These setups don't determine the strategy, right? Because it's just a price setup. So, just like we trade, just like we teach in step 2, M's and W's. I mean, I could give you a W as something to trade, but if you're a stock trader and that's your specialty, then you're going to trade stock. I might trade a spread on that. or a combination of things, or someone else might trade a call. Like there's no wrong answer. It's just, what do you want to do? What do you like to do? And that's what I like about what Jared's done here with both courses, is that they lend themselves to that kind of universality. Any of us could take advantage of any of these, however we wanted to. So, and to that point, one of the things I love about both of these, and I know you're about to go to Power Trend, but with Bottoms Up and Power Trend, they work on multiple time frames, guys. Like this could be, you could trade a 401k, like a weekly chart, like a much longer term. You could do that here. You could do a smaller, like intraday time frame. Like it's really up to you how you want to do that.
It's really amazing how price patterns and setups can work on all different time frames. It's really kind of creepy in one way. Like, whoa, that is, I mean, it's awesome, but it's kind of like, wow, how does that work? Well, if traders react the same to the same conditions, then you get the same results from those patterns more often than not. And that's really how it works. So, okay, I better get, so the power trend piece, remember, really, really quickly, I'm going to transition and just remind you what we're transitioning to. Bottoms up, we've covered. We kind of understand why it's called that now. I think that's pretty obvious. Power trend, we're going to be looking at trends that just are in place, and we want to trade momentum and continuation. So, as a heads up for what I've done for these examples, I've got 3 that I can go through, and I know that doesn't sound like a lot, but what I've done is I've gone back to about, I think this is about the middle of 2023, and I've highlighted every power trend entry on these 3 charts since that time. I didn't pick which ones looked the best and said, hey, look at this great power trend trade. I highlighted every one of them. Now, I guess there's a chance I could have missed 1 or 2, but for the most part, I did highlighted all of them. So we're going to go through it. I'm going to show you where they are, what they look like. You'll see the ones that would have stopped out. I have a line to show you where your stop loss would be, which is definitive in the power trend setup. Part of the power trend setup is an indicator that we've added. There's 3 indicators that are going to be a part of the power trend, right? One of them is new, and we're going to teach it to you. It is going to tell you exactly where your initial stop loss is. You will not have to guess where to put your stop, okay? You won't have to guess, well, should I put it below this moving average or below this pivot low or whatever? You're going to know based on the setup, okay? So I'm going to show you where the entries are, where the stop would have been, and I'm going to go through and just scroll and show you all the ones that showed up. You can do your own determinations from there. We'll go as long as we think we need to. I've got Netflix, Spotify, and Palantir. 3 of the like hottest stocks in the market over the last few years. The reason being is there's a lot of different examples in those. Not because they're the hottest 3 stocks. You're going to find this set up across all kinds of watch lists, right? But I wanted to have some good examples and show you where it shows up and what it looks like. So I'm going to start. Let's go to here. Oh, and by the way, I've got to get this in. I've got an example on the S&P that I think will knock your socks off that you'll like. But let's start here at Netflix. You're going to see all these little arrows populate here. I'm going to come back here. This is my first example. Back that out. All right. Now, this is just a random starting point in time, right? Like, so there's nothing special about this setup right here. Although I'm going to say this because it's the very first one that came up. This is a very good setup. Post earnings, this is an earnings gap. It moves up. When you get that and you have a power trend post earnings, it is very nice. And it happens a lot. So it's something I watch for all the time. In this case, green arrow is going to be the entry day. It's a daily chart. Red line is where your stop is. I'm not randomly placing the red line. Once we give you the criteria, you're going to know why I put the red line there. It's where our initial stop loss is going to be. So you'll know exactly how much you're risking. And then unlike bottoms up, there isn't a definitive upside target, but you're going to know that you're already in a powerful short-term trend. You're going to know exactly what you're risking. And then all you have to determine based on price is, do I think the stock can move about 2 times that or more? Right? Well, if you've already determined that it's in a momentum trend, then the odds are very likely you're going to get at least 2 to 3 to 4 to 5x how much you're risking, which is exactly what we want to find, right? So in this case, again, there will be 3 main criteria with power trend. And you can't miss it. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. The green day is your entry. The red line's your stop loss. So clearly this was, I don't really have to talk much about that. That was super powerful, great move. I mean, you're talking probably 6 or 7 times your risk on that. And I'm just going to keep scrolling to the right, okay? So we can look at every single one to current day. Here's another one. Green arrow's the entry day. Here's the stop. If the stock moves up to the equivalent of the stop loss, I'm going to call that a winning trade. This one moved up probably 2 times the stop loss. It did come down here. It actually didn't. It didn't stop out, honestly. So, but I'm not counting or anything. I'm just saying that's how I'm going to determine whether it was a successful trade. Let's say this did move up 2 or 3 times the risk before it rolled over. And honestly, it kind of went sideways into the earnings report, right? Here's something else I want you to think about as we scroll, because I'm going to do a bunch of these. As much as we're highlighting when the entries occur, pay as much attention to where you're not getting in trades. Okay? Think about when the trend is not very apparent. You're not getting entries triggered into these trends that are sideways, staggering, that they don't have any momentum, right? There's no power, quote, in the trend. Nothing's perfect, but a lot of times you're gonna stay out of charts that don't have momentum, right? All right, here's another one. This is the next one that surfaces. We have an earnings report. It gaps up. This is the first power trend post earnings. There's your entry. This red line is your stop. 4 days later, you get another one. If you miss this one, you got another one. Maybe you bought this here with a small position, and then 4 or 5 days later, you add to your position because it re-triggers. That's possible. So there's another one. The red line would be the stop loss on that entry. Okay. Remember, not just where we're entering, but where we're not. You see a lot of momentum in this chart up here? Getting kind of sideways, right? Now we get a gap down after earnings. Okay. Now remember, I highlighted every power trend, bullish and bearish, on these charts, okay? That's the next one. There's a lot of time between these. This was February 22nd. I didn't get another power trend until May 17th, but it kept me out of a bunch of sideways to choppy price action. That is powerful. And I need that in my trading because remember, I'm looking for those strong trends. So we got an entry here, stop loss at the red line. We got another entry here. The reason I have a longer line on that stop loss is just to show you that this is where the stop was, and the stock came down and tested, never stopped out, continued to run up. So either one or both of these, you're playing into the momentum. It's really important. Here's another one. This candle here, stop loss at the red line. We never stopped out. There's another one that triggers a few days later, second chance opportunity. Now we roll over. Uh-oh, what's a red arrow mean? Red arrow is actually, we haven't talked about this yet, a bearish power trend entry. So for those of you who don't trade options, you can trade stocks up or down if you understand the tools. In this case, if you know how to not short, but trade to the downside, that was an entry, and the red horizontal line was the stop loss above, right? Because if we want the stock to move down, we have to have a limit to how much we'll let it move up against us. So there was a bearish entry. There's another bearish entry. Notice, what is the direction of the chart? Is it trending? It is trending. It's just trending down. Well, trader going to trade, right? If you have your setup and, you want to take advantage of it over and over and over, you may take some of these downside trades as well. These both individually worked or both together. If you, entered both times, you could have traded those. And again, this will just jump off the page at you. Now, this is something important. Notice we don't get a power trend through here. You'll know why when you see the criteria. We don't get one till over here. There is some proving a lot of times that needs to take place, just like bottoms up, to show me that I've got that criteria setting up. And when it does, you'll see it. So here was an entry with a stop at the red line. There was another entry here, stop at the red line. Guess what? Take a stop loss on this one, right? The stock never moved up enough before it stopped us out. So right in here, it hits your red line. I mean, I guess you could have stopped out any one of these days, but basically the red line was your loss. Whether you enter one of these days or both, it came down, hit your stop, and then it went back up, which, hey, guess what? Welcome to trading. That happens. All right, no big deal. Shake it off. We've got all these winning trades, and now we took a couple of, well, it could be one or two, but let's just say that's a loss down to the stop, and then the stock bounces and moves back up. It's a lot easier to recover mentally from that when you get stopped out and then the stock moves back in the direction you wanted it to, when you can just sit around and wait for the next one. So here's the next one. There's your stop. There's another one. There's your stop. Now this, questionable. I mean, if you bought this here at 709, it did move up to 735 before the earnings report. So we'll just call that neutral. Whether you would have made money there or not, who knows, right? Maybe you did, maybe you didn't. You knew earnings was coming, so you probably wouldn't have been too greedy there. But my point is, I highlighted them because they fit the criteria, so I didn't want to leave any out. There's that post earnings. Boom. Big move up. Criteria set up here and again here. The red line was the stop for either one of those, and you got a really good momentum move out of that. That's a power trend right there. That's a move from 760 to 836 before it even has a pullback. Right after that one-day pullback, you trigger into another one if you want it. There's another one, more upside. There's another one. Now remember, it looks silly. You're thinking, why would you buy that? Because the trend is hot. I don't know when it's going to stop, and I don't care. I'm not going to guess when it's going to stop. It triggered there, stop loss at the red line. You hit your stop a few days later. Chalk it up, you cut your loss, and that was it. And look where the stock went after that. Are you glad you got out? I would be. If I bought here, I would really glad to stop out at 905, seeing the stock now roll over. That's why stops are important. Okay, we have a big earnings. These are great. There's a big earnings move. There's that post-earnings power trend right there. Your stop loss is down here because you've got a little more volatility in the stock right now. But you do have that stop down there. Moves up. You get another entry here. There's your stop. I mean, if it weren't so awesome, it could get boring. Move this along. Okay. This candle here. Bearish power trend. Red line is the stop. You never hit your stop after you got in. You took advantage of a nice big flush to the downside. That was just like 2 weeks ago. This is current day now. So the market rolled over, right? We got all that profit taking. Netflix had that first burst to the downside. It wobbled in here. It set up the criteria. I don't need two arrows here. Set up the criteria right here. Actually, you know what? I think those two arrows, I think it was an entry here and here. Both of these two candles were an entry. The stop loss was in that same spot. And you took advantage of that big flush to the downside. Matter of fact, even if you were getting bearish at 964, this thing went down to 856 in a matter of a few days. So pretty solid. Okay. I know Caleb's internet went out. He texted me, so he's not on. So I haven't been looking at chat or anything, and I will. Someone actually tell me in chat. I'm going to go pretty fast. That was pretty quick. I got two more I want to do for sure, but I don't need to do all those. Do you guys want to look at more examples? Do you want me to skip to the end and show the S&P example I have? What do you guys think? I'm here for you, and I'll stay late. It's up to you guys. Are we saying yes, yes, yes? And by the way, what I might do is I might do one more, maybe two more quick ones. I'll show you the bundle, and then I can come back in here and do like a couple of examples with the S&P if that makes sense. Okay, cool. I'm going to go with the majority there. Appreciate the feedback. All right, so that is Netflix. What's next? A real super popular one. I use this all the time. Spotify. Let's check this out. By the way, you see these two right here? There was a bottoms up back here. Now let's just look at it real quick. There was a quick bottoms up on Spotify. I don't think I showed that one, but oops. Little entry there, runs up. It doesn't look like much, but it went from 82 to 100 right here. So not bad. And then let me get over here to there we go. First power trend example. Again, nothing specific about that day. I just had to start somewhere in time to show the example. So we see some momentum showing up. This is our first entry, a very tight, nice tight stop loss on that. You can see from this candle, that's your risk. I mean, you can just see visually 1 or 2 or 3 times your risk very quickly there. Next setup is here. Stop loss down here. I'm going to say one detail because people will ask for sure. Did you stop out? Right? 50% of you may say yes, 50% may say no. The point is maybe. Depends on you and how you trade. All right, it touched the stop loss level. I like to try to wait till the end of the day. And if it bounces back, I try to hold it, but this could go either way, right? We'll call this a neither a stop or a target. We'll say it's a non-event because you could have held this for a very nice profit, or maybe you stopped out right at the lows. That's okay, that happens too. Next one. There we go, right here. Stop loss at the red line. Stock moves up a little, dips down. Oh, baby. That's what I want to see. That is always what you want to see after a, you take a 158 entry with a 152 stop, $6 risk, and you ride that thing up to 180. If you could, maybe you didn't, maybe you sold in here or here, whatever. I'm not saying you would have held it to the high, but the point is putting yourself in a momentum situation, right? That's really the key. All right, no more entries in here. Heading into earnings, we get the gap down after earnings. And hey, here's the opposite of those post-earning. Well, it is a post-earnings power trend, but it's a bearish one. This candle right here. Post-earnings, bearish power trend with a stop at the red line. So you're bearish in here at, let's call it 145. And this thing flushes down to 130. Pretty solid move. Now we get a bullish wave of price back up. We pull back. Here's your next one. There's your stop loss. Again, I can't say ever that, everybody would have made money here or you wouldn't have made money. But the point was, this is your entry. This is your stop. It did make a move all the way to here before it pulled back. And it would have stopped you out if you stayed in it. So that one was not a huge move, but definitely enough to make profit. If you bought at 157, oh yeah, it ran up $10. So, maybe not, depends on the individual there. Sideways boring action, we don't want any part of that. We don't get a trigger because the criteria is meant to find powerful trends. There's one right there. Stop loss, there's your move. So entry 170, this move, but at the next trigger, it's at 185, and you're getting a new trigger into the trade. And this one worked out really nicely. That was not an earnings report, by the way. That was a news event. Can we all get that kind of timing where we buy here and then it gaps up like that? That's fun. Next one is here and it's bearish. Right on this candle. Bearish entry and stop out. Well, I say that. It did move down a little. How much did it move down? Like 190 to 185. I mean, okay, maybe you took some profit or moved your stop down for sure, but I'm going to call that a stop loss right in here. If we got bearish, let's just give the benefit of the doubt and say that would have been a stop. Here's the next bullish one with a stop at the red line. There's another one, stop at the red line. This is where your trend starts to get some momentum. There's another one, re-enter. Now this one is right before earnings, but I highlighted it because I said I would. You wouldn't take that trade 2 days before earnings. Post-earnings power trend. This one happened right off of a long-term trend line too, right there. Red line's the stop. Another one. Again, there's a reason these days are the ones that trigger because it's very clear and obvious. There's another one with the stop at the red line. Get a good move up. Here's the next one. Notice, again, it's so important. Notice what it keeps you out of. It keeps you out of that. That's what you don't want, right? Keeps you out of that junky, sideways. That's really the price action that kills you. You don't think it does, but it does. That's the stuff that kills you. All right. Let's see. There's the next one. Kind of get your stop intraday. Maybe you did, maybe you didn't. Then it moved up. Another one right here. I think you get the point here. There's going to be a bunch of these once you know how to find them. Now, you might think there would be one right through here, but there isn't. It is what it is. They show up when they show up. And that one was a little, well, you could have run this one right up into the earnings report. That was a nice move. And then, gosh, it just kept going. Notice how, though, you're not catching every long and every short. You're just catching some really solid situations with a defined risk. And like, if you didn't know what power trend was, you probably could identify this as a bearish opportunity right here. Moves down, flags up, and fails, right? But you also had the criteria in play for this trade. There's another one. Two more right here back to back, which caught a very good move into the earnings report. That's always nice. And we are current day here. There's a bullish one that ends up stopping out and then follows with 2 bearish entries that have been very nice the last few days on Spotify there. So again, I know kind of picking up the pace to go through that quickly, but repetition is the best teacher, right? So these are going to be highlighted in the course. I'm going to get to the bundle here in a minute. And for those of you who want to take advantage of it and take part in it, we're going to show you all this. I'm going to introduce you to the package of indicators for each setup in the course, the class that we're going to teach live. I'll show you, here's what they are. Here's what we put on our chart. Here's how the trigger works. Like for power trend, it's going to be very specific. Here's when the criteria meets for you to say, okay, I can consider buying this. Now you may not buy them all, but you'll know when it's setting up. So that's what you'll learn in the course. Okay. Let's see. Okay, how about this? How about I pull over here to the bundle right quick and show you guys what we're offering, and then I can come back as long as you guys want to and look at some more examples. But let me show you for those of you, because we're about an hour and 20 minutes now, and for those that want to stay for examples, I'm fine doing that. But let's go ahead and show you what it looks like to take advantage of this. Let's see. I think you guys are seeing my whole screen. Somebody tell me in chat. Caleb had dropped off. His internet's probably not back up yet. Are you seeing my screen now with the bundle offer? Hand up. Yes. Chat. Yes. Okay. Cool. Thank you. Appreciate it. Caleb's working on getting his internet back up, but hey, it happens, right? Okay. So let's talk about this real quick, and then I'll go back and show you some more examples. This is the order form. I'm going to go ahead and copy this and put it in chat really quick. Bear with me one second. Okay, now what I'm looking at on the screen you have in chat, you can click that link. So this is, I'm going to go pretty quickly, but we've already got all the details on what these are. We have plenty of details on what the 2 setups are. We're calling this the PowerUP Bundle because we're putting them together for a bundle with a special bundle offer with some bonuses and a special price, right? So we've talked about why this bundle. This is David Verbruggen, one of our coaches. The look on his face tells you what most traders struggle with. We're looking for more flexibility. We're looking for more specificity. We talked about that. So you can scroll down here and we're going to show you what's included here. So the power trend course itself, which is a $697 value, the bottoms up course itself, $697 value. And then we're going to do a follow-up webinar. So I'm going to teach these each live on different dates. I'll get to the dates in a minute. I'm going to teach them live, each setup on different days, okay? Then on separate dates, I'm going to do a follow-up bonus webinar, okay, where we're going to give you some time to learn the setup, take it into the real market, get it set up on your charts, go out into the market and see it happening in real time. We'll give you a period of time, and then we'll come back where you're going to have more educated questions, not in a bad way, but you're going to be able to see the setup for a while, come back with some questions. We'll get on a live webinar. We'll answer questions about how the thing is setting up, and I'll also bring some trade opportunities to those live webinars. So whatever's setting up at that time, I'll put together a list. We'll walk through what, let's say, bottoms up or power trend, either whichever one we're on, what's setting up in real time, and actually maybe find some paper trade opportunities on those. So we'll do that as a, kind of, you want to understand it, but you also want to kind of hit the ground running. So we'll help you with that. Those will be included in the bundle. All right, we already talked about this. Power trend is going to focus on an existing trend. Bottoms up is going to be finding those reversals, right? Once they're confirmed. Okay. Talked about the bonus sessions. Here are the dates for the live trainings: March 28th at 11 a.m., April 4th at 11 a.m., always recorded, always will be available. These will be the 2 courses that'll go into your learning portal after they're done, right? After we get them recorded, these 2 versions will go in your learning portal. These are the dates down here for the live sessions. After the classes, these are the follow-up webinars, the bonus with the trade setups and the Q&A. And you will have plenty of questions. Even though they're very straightforward, I have high level of confidence with a Q&A session, and seeing a bunch of these over and over and over after the teaching, you're going to really have a very clear idea of what to do. Oh Lord, you don't need to see this. You saw enough of me a minute ago. I don't need to look at that. Okay, here we go. So the bundle offer, we're running at 25% off for the bundle. Retail price is $13.94. That's the $6.97 a piece. Right now, we're going to run this for $10.45. So we're running the bundle price for $10.45. There's two ways to do that. Now, number one, the $10.45 you can do in 3 payments. So 3 payments at $348.50 is $10.45.50. Or you can pay in full and get another, what are we talking, about 10% off for paying in full. So 3 payments at $348.50 will get you both, obviously, the bundle, bottoms up and power trend, for $10.45.50. Or if you want to do it up front for $940.95, you can get them both bonus webinars, both live classes, and get on board with trading some good trends. So that's what we're looking at here. Now, I know we're going to have plenty of questions. I am going to answer all the questions. What I think I'm going to do is, actually, you know what I'll do? I will go over to the chat here in just a second and the Q&A and pause and go through some of that quickly since we just put this up, and then we'll go back to the charts in a minute. There are some FAQs here. Who's this for? Anybody. You don't have to have any kind of education level to take these because these are simply setups. So you don't have to know anything about any specific options or anything like that. All right. How long do I have access? This is on your link. Lifetime access to this class in your learning portal. You'll always have it. You can always go back. All right. We already talked about when these live trainings were, when the bonuses are. And again, I'm kind of skimming a little bit down here because you have the link in the chat. If you need me to repost it, I will. So yeah, you could do this, but this doesn't make much sense to do other than your bundle, honestly, because of the way we've put it together. You have more questions. 2 things you can do. You can email support@tradeway.com as always. You could also message me. If you're on our community page, you can always message me. If I went over to our community page here, you can come find my weird picture. I'm going to go actually do this on somebody else. Here's Blair. Don't message Blair, okay? I'm just using this as an example. If you have a question that you want answered maybe a little quicker or it's specific to the strategy, you can always click on my picture. This is Blair, but click on mine and click message if you're on our community page, and it will private message me. You can do it that way if you want. If not, you can email support@tradeway.com and ask questions there. And of course, I'll be here covering a couple more charts, and we can get some of those questions answered, obviously live here as well. Okay. So you have that link. Does it need to be posted again? Again, I apologize. I'm trying to keep up with chat and Q&A here since Caleb's internet went out. Let's see. Okay. If we purchase this new course, how do we get access to the tools and replays right away? You won't get them right away. You're going to get the recordings up. You're going to get the live classes. So you will not have access to these right away. We will come to, let me come down here. When are the trainings? After March 28th, after we host that live one, hopefully you can be there, but if you can't, that's fine. As soon as we process that recording and it gets through our compliance department, it will be posted in your online learning area, okay? Same thing will be true of these bonus sessions once we record them, all right? So for Power Trend, we're gonna meet on the 28th and teach it. When that's done, it'll be posted for you. April 4th, we're gonna meet and do bottoms up. Once that's processed, that'll be posted for you. That's how that's gonna work. Okay, the reason is we're replacing the old ones with this one. So we're not gonna add any material to your portal on purchase. We're gonna do it in the live setting, if that makes sense. Okay, now there's a ton of questions here. You mentioned charts indicators. Is this something that can be picked up in TOS? Yes, Phil. And I'll deal with that just so you know. Yes, if you're using Thinkorswim, you can set both of these up there, and I'll help show you how to do that. All right. Okay, I think I mentioned that about if you buy the bundle, do you get access to the recorded courses? We're going to be replacing those. Yes, these are going to, if you have charts and you can add indicators, we're going to show you how to set these up on your charts. No problem. I gave you the dates. Looks like I've covered some of that. Replays. A lot of these are replay questions. If you already have both of these, if you have both of these courses, you're going to get invited to all this stuff. So if you've already bought these 2 courses in the past, you're welcome to come to these, and you will get invites for them. So yeah. All right. Someone asked, why did you not get in when there was that big run up on one of those charts? Because the criteria wasn't met. Simple as that, right? Now, let me say this. Let me just point out, like, it's not going to catch every move of every chart, right? It's specific. When the criteria sets up, you'll know when you see why it didn't necessarily trigger the specific power trend entry, but that doesn't mean you couldn't have traded it. It's not the only setup out there, right? By the way, Terrell makes a good point. Says it seems like you're holding these a much shorter time. Well, it depends. I'm not just because it triggered a new entry doesn't mean you had to have gotten out of the first one. That's going to be according to how you want to manage. But we will show you how you can, in a really specific way, trail your profits with the power trend pretty specifically. All right. Let's see. No, same. This is the same, Jeff. It's the same criteria and metrics as it's always been. We've just gotten it added to charts by TRADEway now. All right. Let's see. I'm trying to scroll really quickly. Some of these are more specific to like the setups I was looking at earlier. Okay, a lot of these I've answered with the dates. Okay, all right. I am going to come back over here. And I'm not telling you don't ask any more questions. Keep asking questions. That's just fine. I'm seeing if Caleb gets back on here and he can help field some of these. If not, I'll stay as long as I have to. Okay. But I do want to show you this. I thought this was cool. What do you guys want to do? I know a lot of people have had to drop off, but I have a couple more stocks I could look at. I also have one. Let me just start with the S&P because I think it's really cool. When you think about what we've been talking about, you might have thought to yourself, well, could I use this for kind of determining where I think the market condition is and where we might be going in the market? And would be a very good question. And the answer is yes. Let's go look at 5 years on a weekly chart. There's a lot of arrows, guys. Weekly chart. Remember, this will work on any time frame. Let's go look at power trend entries on an S&P weekly chart. I'll be quick. And again, if you have to drop off, that's fine. Here's where we'll start. Ooh, that's too tight. Let's do this. All right. So, trying to get this towards scaled the way I want here. All right. There's an entry there. Remember, this is a weekly chart. Every candle is 1 week. If you were just saying, excuse me, I want to look for an opportunity to, either enter the market or get a confirmation that I have a really solid trend momentum working in the market, it might be a good idea to look at this on a bigger time frame to determine a little bit of your quote market tone, right? Now, whether that means you actually go trade the signal on the S&P would of course be up to you. But in this case, you got a power trend entry here with a stop there. It did end up signaling a pretty good trend run here. And then you get a couple back to back. Basically what that's just telling you is the trend is remaining strong. You get another one right here. I mean, these were 2 weeks apart. A few weeks later, about a month later, you get another one. Now, important kind of thing to point out here. If this is the broad market and you bought here and here, this is just a really good confirmation that the market's still in a good trend because there's no stopping out in here. Nothing got stopped out. So you could still just be holding a long position in the market at that point. Let me kind of get further out. There we go. If I scroll up, there's a new one. Now we're in a good trending market. So you might be thinking, well, yeah, man, the market's trending. No wonder these are all working. Well, they're not going to show up if we're not in a good trend most of the time. So there's an entry into the market. There's an entry into the market to the upside. There's another one. All of those turn out to move to higher highs. Now, if you're just looking at price, you might look at this and go, man, I see another one that you don't have on here, and that's right there. I would agree. That's a pretty sweet looking setup. It just didn't happen to meet the power trend criteria. That's all right. Doesn't mean it's the only thing you have to trade, but here's one. Market got a little toppy. There's a trade. There's your stop loss, and it got hit right here. Okay, no big deal. Actually got followed up. If you remember the time frame here, this is the end of 2021. Does anybody remember what the market did in 2022? Bear market. Well, there's your first weekly power trend bear right there. That followed through pretty quickly in the next few weeks. There's another one, bear, good follow through. Bear right here, ends up stopping out. Right there, see that? If you were bearish right here, you ended up hitting that red line, hitting that stop. Okay, no big deal. Get out of the way, wait for the next signal. Here's another bearish one right here. That got a good flush to the downside. Remember, we were in a downtrend in the market at this point. So these make plenty of sense that they would be showing up. All this time goes by. This doesn't mean you have to be sitting in cash, by the way. These are just the specific timing of a weekly time frame power trend. Here's a bullish one. We're back in an uptrend. One there. I got some lines on here that I just didn't take off. We had a correction in the market right through here. Got a bearish entry here that followed through, and another one here that you got about a week of follow through on before it bounced. There's the next one. I know some of you are like, why didn't you buy it down here? Look at all the move. I'm just showing you where the criteria. I didn't cherry pick. I'm just telling you where the criteria surfaced, right? And if you're looking at this as a broad measure and this created an action for you to get bullish in the market, you're happy you did, right? That's kind of the point. And then here's another one. We're getting close to current time here. There's another one. Went up a little bit, but this is where we found our market top here recently. So this is real time. We're looking like a pretty significant top in the market here. So I thought that was just cool because any time frame, you can work this. I could go into a smaller time frame and you're going to see the same types of behavior with the criteria. So thought that would be cool to show. And I know we're getting a little long in the tooth here, so I'm going to try to get down new questions. Where are the red arrows for this now top? Oh, well, there isn't a power trend that's formed yet. So there aren't there. So if I go back over to the weekly, let's just do 1 year weekly. I don't have a power trend yet, Terrell. That's why there's no arrows. I don't have a weekly power trend that's set up. This is the last one. It was bullish. On the weekly time frame, I don't have another one that's set up here unless I missed it. I don't think I did. So yeah, again, it's not like every move of the market, it's going to give you a heads up. It's going to give you a heads up when this criteria is met and you're looking for the specific criteria. Okay. This is only offered in this bundle. It's not included in any other part of the education. It was added on after all the other education was developed. Yes, if you get this bundle and you have access to these courses, anything like this we happen to do in the future, you will be invited to it, just like people who bought this in the 3 years ago or whatever, 5 years ago, they're going to be invited to our live sessions. Absolutely. We wouldn't leave you out. All right. Any other questions that I need to answer here? I don't want to leave anybody hanging. And I know the crowd's dwindling. I got more examples, but I don't want to keep you all night. What is the probability of this trade working? I mean, there's 3 million of these that set up, so I can't possibly give you a probability. But I do know this. The reason I like to trade trends is because they're already telling me their personality. Right? They're already trying to make higher highs and higher lows. So that alone gives you an edge. When you start adding a couple of different criteria to help with the timing of the entry, and then being able to measure, here's exactly where my stop loss is, and I can look at that trend and get an idea of whether that would be worth risking my money, it's a significant edge. I can't tell you 82.6% of these are winners, and I don't have that data. But I mean, trends alone give you an edge. This is basically, like I said earlier, just a way to identify some specific price action in the trending zip code, if you will. So yeah, it's one of these that I've been trading for a long time now. Never gets old. And what's really nice about it is I just don't have to look around for 5, 6, 7 different setups. I know what I want. Been finding them forever. It's not magic. It's just how price moves. These different setups simply highlight the type of price movement I want to trade, which is why I mentioned that at the beginning. right? I want to trade a certain type of price action, a nice solid trend. If you have a chart that is moving like this, if you find a chart, you know, and there's a trend line like this, but it's doing this, it's not going to show up on a power trend, right? It may be trending, but it ain't going to show up. You get a chart that's making a nice move and a concise pullback and a nice move and a shallow pullback. That's the kind of price I want to trade. These are actionable. I don't have to feel like I'm in a hurry. I know right when they set up. The moves are still worth trading, but I don't get setups in big volatile moves. I get them when the price action is moving more deliberately, if that makes sense. Okay. If you need more information on anything other than this form, feel free to email support@tradeway.com. You can go to that community page, click on my picture, message me. I'll get you what you need. But yeah, I want you to have all the information you need. Any questions you have that haven't been answered, don't be shy. Feel free to email those in or again, message me. And we can get you any details you need on that moving forward. But the dates, pull those up one more time. These are the dates. And again, I know it's irritating if you can't make the live class, but you're going to get the recording really pretty quickly. We do a pretty good job of getting those posted quickly. So you'll have them pretty quickly, but you could snapshot that if you want to have an idea of when those will be. The same is true for these webinars where I'm going to go do Q&A and have active setups. That we'll have them posted pretty quickly. So those are still potentially actionable for you if we find some good ones at that time. Okay. It's a good question, Jeff. Well, as you can see by tonight, there's no telling how long they'll be. No, I think we have them blocked off for like 3 hours each for the classes. They asked me and I said, you know, I think they're 11 a.m. So like 11 to 2 is what we have them blocked off for. And I think that's plenty. But again, just like tonight, once I get going on charts, and I really don't like to leave questions out there when I'm teaching. So I typically will go until we've answered everything. But I would mark off 3 hours and we're probably good with that, but possibly a little longer, possibly shorter. Is that fair enough? I know a lot of folks have already kind of done what they need to do, and that's what I got for you tonight. I hope that was, look, I've been trading these for a long time, so I don't, you know, it's not like I don't need to convince myself anymore. I just know it's powerful, it's fun, you know, it's very specific. So it's like, it's refreshing to go look at something and be like, okay, there it is. You know, I see it. Do I want to trade it this time or not? I know it's there. And you can go across your entire watch list and just go through and find which ones are obeying the rules, if you will, and which ones aren't. And that's really what we're trying to do, you know, as traders, is just, like we said at the beginning, limit our opportunities to the ones where we feel like we have the best edge, and then just do that over and over and over. And that's really it. All right, folks. Any other questions, you just shoot them over again, support@tradeway.com, or private message me on the community. We will make sure we get back to you ASAP. So get those questions in. We'll get back to you as soon as we can. If you need anything else, please let us know. And I really appreciate you guys coming. Everybody have a good evening. We'll see you guys next time. By the way, you know, we're doing this again Friday afternoon at noon. I mean, we have a whole nother group of people showing up for that, but of course, if you want to register for that, you can too. Want to see this again, but it'll be basically the same presentation. If you get thrown off by that, it's the same thing. All righty. Appreciate you folks. Y'all have a good evening. We'll see you next time.